We're back here at Next Nation, channel 126 Urban View, Sirius XM Urban View. I'm your host, Sylvia, Alston, and I'm here with my guest, Gina, Humber. We were having such a good conversation. I forgot this was an interview, honey. I was supposed to be asking questions.
I'm so sorry.
Honey, listen, we were just we were all into that discussion. So before we went to the break, we were talking about, you mentioned Airbnb. Yeah. Now, I have a bit of an issue with Airbnb from the risk management side, because you know that's what I do. They are a bit troublesome in the fact that, you know, how you insure your home. If you're going to use your home as an Airbnb, insurance companies don't want anything to do with them. I know people can make a lot of money from them, especially in New York. I have a friend who utilizes it in New York City, and he makes a killing off of Airbnb. But I've also heard some stories, right? So you have to be careful when you're using Airbnb. So a place like HomeShare and there's other companies. Do you utilize Airbnb?
Right. I did up until there started to be a lot of instances as it relates to African Americans and how people have been acting, and
they were sued.
Yeah, I know. You know, we were talking about before, or after the break, or during the break, we were talking about Bob Marley's granddaughter.
Yes.
And what happened with that, and so I want to tell your listeners that you can always go to, because now we have to get the new Green Book, right? The new Green Book is online, so to speak, in terms of African American Association of Innkeepers. So that's something I always
African American Association of Innkeepers. And that will give you places that you can find that are owned by people of color.
Absolutely.
All around the world.
Is international. And you can also go to the Black-owned hotel directory. Right, and so that also will give you all hotels that are owned by African Americans. There's only 700 hotels that we own inside the U.S., but it has to do with this word that I used on another program I was on, which was we need to stop saying support Black businesses, and we need to start saying patronize Black business.
Tell me why you use it. Tell me why you use that word.
You're gonna love this, right? So when I think of support, I think of like you're kind of crippled, you know, and I need to kind of ail you up, right? I'm not looking at it on an ongoing basis. I want my mind to change in terms of my dollars. I look at dollars in a very spiritual way. I look at honestly as what I sow into a business, right? And I don't want to sow my money into businesses that don't respect me. And I don't have time to figure out whether or not you're the European American that respects me or not. Right. But I know I can go to Black-owned hotel directory, and I know I can go to African American Association, and I know you're not going to arrest me because what was the reason? They didn't smile, they didn't say hello.
Or you were taking a nap, right?
Absolutely, or you were taking a nap. Yeah. You know, it might be other reasons, but it won't be those. Right. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And so, like, of course, I support people like Monique Greenwood and Aquaba, who owns her bed and breakfast. I purposely go out my way. That's the important part of travel. And so the website that we have, we clearly, you know, I'm not trying to, like, again, be exclusive, but what I am trying to do is educate us as people of color in terms of how we travel. Yeah, and what our options are. Exactly, and what our options are. We are very much programmed and used to just going, okay, you know, I'll just do this. No, go out your way. It's not that much, you know, and especially when we list it on our site. You know, we list the hotels, or you list the bed and breakfasts, or you list the restaurants. There's no excuse anymore. You know, there's just none. So many of us we travel and we shop by name brand. So, you know, one of the things that I've said to friends when I've traveled with them is if we are venturing into a new city, I'm not going to eat at Outback in Portland, Oregon. Are you kidding me? I want to eat at some damn restaurants that are native to the town. I'm not going to, you know, service another franchise that I've had in New Jersey, right? And so many of us, we buy and we make our purchases based on the name brands that we see in every town that we go to, right? And I agree with you. It is time to kind of like break that cycle a bit. So you like the word patronize. Yeah, patronize, do business with, because we do business with European Americans, right? We don't support them. Right. You don't think to yourself, let me go support this. You don't think that. No, you patronize. Let me go support IHOP. That's right. Yes. You don't do that. you give your money to them. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, we made it a point on the site of One Girl, One Globe Travels to be a part of, you know, listing African American, because we want you to be a conscious traveler. We want you to be a sister, of course, a brother. I don't want to exclude the brothers.
Hey, don't exclude the brothers.
No.
Don't exclude the brothers. No. But I think that's an important point, though, because I do think that black women do travel more than black men. Even when they're afraid, they will travel with a number of women, but they will travel.
Right.
You know, how do we get our men to start to travel a bit more?
So here's what I found out. I mean, I didn't do a statistics on it or anything, but here's what I found out. We usually bring them along, right? And so what happens is they end up liking it. Like, oh, this is a cool spot. Let me tell Tyrone or whomever. And then next thing you know.
Or Malik Alston.
Right. And then they go. You know, exactly. And so, but that conversation needs to happen as well as every other conversation during this political and social and economic time. We need to start looking at exactly what you said, us as global citizens and us looking at things in a global way. Because if we do, then we're looking at it in economics. We're looking at it in terms of our retirement. We're looking at it in terms of our humanity and building our culture. I mean, we only have a one-sided view, and I work for public education of where our ancestors come from. So, well, I decided to do a group trip.
Oh.
Yes. And so I did a group trip with the sisters at a sister group because I'm a sister.
Because you're a sister.
And I wanted to support.
Right.
Well, it seems.
She popped her lips. There's going to be some drama.
So the trip for Dubai was supposed to happen. And the reason why I was so psyched to have this trip, because, you know, I wanted to have this conversation at Columbia University. We're going to allow me to have a conversation as to why we visit in terms of Dubai versus Ghana.
Yes.
And I wanted to have that conversation with people of color. Like, why are we willing to go to Dubai, but we're not willing to go to, you know, Ghana?
Right.
And so the group, canceled in January. And then 2 days, they rescheduled in April, and then canceled 2 days before I was supposed to fly out in April.
Oh, that's horrible.
It is. But what it did was this. What it brought back to me was who I am as a traveler, right? And
the risk manager in me wants to say, did you buy trip cancellation coverage?
I didn't do any of that. I know. But wait,
you've got to call me more often.
Right. Okay. Look, we could switch. I'll do hostels and you could do insurance.
I'll help you do insurance.
But I'm gonna tell you that, and your listeners listening, shit like that happens as a traveler. Period. Whether or not it's your flight being canceled, whether or not something comes up, right? So what I did was, that's when you saw the pictures of Arizona.
Yeah.
So I said to myself,
which
were beautiful.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, do I want to sit here and be pissed about this? Or what did I learn from traveling? And what I learned is to be nimble. What I learned is to stretch, right? And like you were saying about how we have the credit cards, right?
Yes.
So I said, charge it. And I charged. And I went to Arizona and did the Grand Canyon and did the Antelope Canyon. And it was spiritual and beautiful.
It was it was spiritual for me watching you.
Aww.
It was really and I've been to Arizona and I've been to this place in the canyons. So I understand what that's like, having that experience and then experiencing that alone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get you to come back. We are out of time. I hate this, but there's so much more that we have to talk about. But one of the reasons that I created this show, honestly, was about the 3 L's, and it's about lifestyle, legacy, leadership. It's really about getting people in the mind frame that they can create.
That's right.
And have the life that they endeavor to have. I want people to get some of the stuff out of their head, and actually out into the universe. So that's
why you're so damn beautiful.
Oh, Gina, you are too. You've got to come back. You've got to continue to help the people. You have a welcome seat here at any point that you want to come back. I love you.
I love you too.
We could talk for another 45 minutes.
I know.
Oh, but we're out of time. You only give me an hour. Damn it. That's it for Next Nation today, everyone. I am your host, Sylvia Alston. That is my lovely guest, Gina Humber. You can follow her on
One Girl, One Globes Travel on Instagram and on Twitter, Gina Humber HUMBER 720 at Twitter.
You can find me anywhere you type in the word Sylvia K. Alston. I'm on Instagram. It's all about Sil. You can follow my website. That's it for us today. Stay tuned to SXM Urban View, channel 126. Love you guys. Have a beautiful and blessed Sunday.